What if I told you the 1970s were America's last stand for raw quarter-mile dominance? Before emissions choked the big blocks, before the insurance companies waged war on horsepower, a handful of cars slipped out that turned streets into drag strips. They weren't just fast, they were outrageously fast. Today, we're counting down the 10 fastest classic muscle cars of the 70s, ranked by their real-life quarter-mile brutality. These beasts weren't made to save gas, they were made to destroy stopwatches. It was an era when torque was cheap, leaded fuel was king, and the quarter-mile time was the only number that mattered. These cars rolled off showroom floors with lopey cams, massive carbs, and the kind of attitude you could hear 2 blocks away. Forget corporate horsepower ratings, the drag strip told the truth. Some were built in big numbers, others in handfuls, but each one left a scorched mark on muscle car history. So, buckle up, let's drop the hammer and see which of these monsters actually ruled the asphalt. Top 1. 1970 Chevelle SS 450 for LS6. It looked like any other Chevelle, until you heard that low, angry lope at idle. In 1970, if you wanted to own the quarter mile straight from the showroom, you didn't ask for stripes. You asked for an LS6 badge. Outside, it was pure muscle, bulging cowl induction hood, racing stripes if you wanted them, rally wheels, and that SS 454 cubic ink LS64 badge that made lesser street racers think twice. Inside, no frills, just black vinyl buckets, a big tack on the dash, and a hearse shifter daring you to drop the hammer. But the real story sat under that cowl. The 454 cubic ink L6 V8, factory X-4 at 450 horsepower. But every drag racer worth his slicks knew it was closer to 500. Solid lifters, a high lift cam, forged pistons, the stuff that made other engines cry mercy. The Chevelle SS 454 LS6 didn't just win at stoplights, it made your insurance agent break out in a cold sweat. Few buyers were ready to pay the sky-high premiums, and fewer still could keep those rear tires alive. Official quarter-mile times? Mid to low 13s at over 18 miles per hour, bone stock. Some owners, with open headers and slicks, dip deep into the 12s. That made the LS6 the factory king of the streets in 1970. Survivors are drag strip gold today, worth every penny to collectors who know they're holding the crown jewel of the muscle era. But what happens when you take that same brute force, wrap it in Buick luxury, and unleash more torque than a Chevelle ever dreamed of? The next beast on this list did exactly that, and it did it in quiet, comfortable style. Top 2. 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1 510 pound-feet torque. You'd never suspect the old man's Buick to be the car that embarrassed Chevelles and Roadrunners at the drag strip, but in 1970 Buick dropped a bomb no one saw coming, the GSX Stage 1. On the outside, it wore a tuxedo with racing stripes, a delicate balance of muscle and luxury. Bright Saturn yellow or Apollo white paint screamed for attention, while a rear spoiler, hood-moved tatch, and fat Goodyears left no doubt this wasn't your grandpa's Electra. Inside, it was all business with the comfort of a personal lounge, high-back bucket seats, rally gauges, and enough fake wood trim to remind you that yes, you were still driving a Buick. But the real shock was under that hood. Buick's 455 cubic inch V8 Stage 1 wasn't just big, it was brutal. Factory rated at 360 horsepower, but with a monster 510 pound-feet of torque, it delivered a tidal wave of twist that could light up the tires halfway down the block. Car and driver clocked the GSX Stage 1 at 13.38 seconds in the quarter mile, right there with the Chevelle LS6, but with air conditioning, power steering, and a ride so smooth you could do it in a suit. People mocked Buick for playing in the muscle car game, until they lost to one. Insurance companies hated it. Dealerships struggled to sell them because few buyers believed a Buick could really run with the big dogs. But what if you took that same torque attitude, wrapped it in red, white, and blue, and gave the underdog of Detroit a chance to swing back? You'd get a rebel that shocked everyone at the lights, and that's exactly what's waiting next. Top 3. 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. You didn't whisper about the Hemi Cuda, you shouted about it. Because back in 1970, if you roll up with a Cuda, packing the almighty 426 Hemi, you were basically challenging the world to a street fight. Plymouth's pony car was never just about looking good. Sure, the Cuda had a menacing split grille, hockey stick side stripes, and a shaker hood scoop that literally quivered with rage at every stoplight. But the real story sat under that shaker, the legendary 426 cubic Hemi V8. Factory rated at 426 cubic inch Hemi V8. Factory rated at 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. Insiders knew the real output was closer to 500. Add a heavy DT torque light automatic, or a 4-speed with a pistol grip shifter, and the Hemi CDO would shred the quarter mile in the low 13s bone stock. That made it one of the quickest muscle cars you could buy off a dealer lot, no questions asked. But the Hemi option wasn't just powerful, it was pricey. Insurance companies hated it, emissions laws were tightening, and gas stations weren't exactly thrilled about feeding this beast 104-octane leaded fuel every other day. Fewer than 700 hardtops and convertibles were ordered with the Hemi that year. Because so few were made, and because so many were wrapped around telephone poles, original Hemi Cudas are now among the rarest and most valuable muscle cars in the world. Some have crossed the auction block for over $3 million. And yet, while Plymouth built a street brawler with the Cuda, Dodge had its own Hemi Brute, ready to stalk the same quarter mile, wearing Challenger stripes and an attitude just as deadly. Top 4 1970 Oldsmobile 442 W30. Some muscle cars shouted their power. The 442 W30 didn't have to say a word. It let quarter-mile times do the talking. In 1970, Oldsmobile pushed the envelope on their 442, the 4-barrel, 4-speed, dual-exhaust powerhouse, by introducing the W30 package. On the surface, it looked like a gentleman's coupe. Clean lines, subtle badging, rally wheels. Slide into the cabin, and you'd find premium buckets, a wood-grain dash, and creature comforts that made it feel more upscale than any Chevelle or GTO, but under the hood, pure mayhem. The W30 option upgraded the 455 cubic inch Rocket V8 with special heads, a hotter cam, and a big cold cyme intake that poked through the dual scoops of the fiberglass hood. This wasn't your uncle's comfy Cutlass. The factory blueprinted some W30S for drag racing, hand-fitted bearings, tighter tolerances, and underrated horsepower figures. Officially, the 455 was rated at 370 horsepower and a crushing 500 pound-feet of torque. But testers found real output was well over 400 horses. With the right driver and a 4-speed Muncie, these beasts consistently ran mid-13ths on the strip, humbling bigger names with ease. Even today, an authentic 442 W30 stands out for its duality. Plush enough for a Sunday cruise, savage enough to rip up the quarter mile. Collectors search endlessly for real-deal W30S, especially ones with matching numbers and that iconic red inner fender liners. But if Oldsmobile's Gentleman Bruiser impressed you, wait until you see what Pontiac was doing with the Firebird, blending Trans Am styling with Ram Air 4 Fury. The next ride didn't just look fast, it absolutely was. Top 5. 1970 Pontiac Firebird, Trans Am, Ram Air 4. At first glance, it was a Trans Am like any other, until you heard the Ram Air 4 under the hood and realized this bird wasn't here to play nice. 1970 was a big year for Pontiac. The redesigned Firebird got sleeker, meaner, and the new Trans Am trim turned it into a road racer for the street. Most buyers settled for the reliable Ram Air 3, but for the truly unhinged, Pontiac offered a handful with the Ram Air 4, an engine lifted straight out of the GTO Judge playbook. It wasn't about displacement, it was about revs and breathing. High drop round pulp heads, an aggressive cam, forged internals, all designed to make 400 cubic inches scream past 6,000 RPM. Inside, it was no stripped-down drag mule. Deluxe vinyl seats, full gauges, and a 4-spood Hurst shifter put you in command. Outside, it wore the iconic blue and white war paint, shaker hood scoop, and deep front air dam. While officially rated at 345 horsepower, same as the Ram Air 3, insiders knew the 4 made 20 to 30 more horses easily. Period tests clocked these birds tearing down the quarter in the high 13S at over 103 miles per hour, humiliating bigger, heavier cars, but it wasn't cheap, and insurance companies hated it. As a result, fewer than 100 Ram Air 4 Trans Ams were built that year. Today, they're holy grails for Pontiac collectors. Rarer than a Judge convertible and arguably more road-ready. Just finding one with its original drivetrain is like striking muscle car gold. And if you think this Firebird's rarity is wild, buckle up. The next Detroit beast was born to rumble with Hemi power, a Mopar legend whose name still echoes at drag strips today. Top 6. 1970 Ford Torino Cobra 429 Super Cobra Jet drag pack. Blink and you'd miss it. Ford's big bigamy Torino Cobra SCJ wasn't just another pretty fastback. It was a quarter-mile assassin disguised as a family cruiser. In 1970, Ford decided to shove its new 429 Super Cobra Jet engine, a monster born for NASCAR homologation, into the mid-size Torino Cobra. On paper, it was a spacious streetcar with bucket seats and a broad dash, but open the hood and you'd find the real reason this Torino was feared: the 429 cubic inch V8 Ram air induction solid lifters and 780 CFM Holycarb. Officially, it was rated at 375 HP and a brutal 450 pound-feet of torque. But Ford's drag pack option didn't stop there. Pick the drag pack box and you got 3.91 or 4.3 gears, an external oil cooler, forged pistons, and a 4-bolt main block that begged for high RPM punishment. The entire setup was a shot fired straight at GM's LS6 and Mopar's Hemi Brigade. On the street, the Torino Cobra SCJ looked mild, but on the strip, different story. Magazine tests clocked the quarter mile at a stunning 13.8 seconds at 106 miles per hour, bone stock, on skinny bias ply tires. In the real world, well-tuned examples ran deep 13s and would edge out plenty of big bot Chevelles. And it did it all while carrying full interior and steel bumpers. Talk about sleeper speed. Collectors today hunt drag pack SCJs because so few survived unmolested. Many were street raced into the ground, their original engines swapped or blown to bits. A real deal SCJ Torino is a hidden bullet that makes even seasoned gearheads nod in respect. But Ford's mid-size missile was just one chapter. If you think a 429 SCJ was fast, wait till you meet Plymouth's idea of muscle. A roadrunner that packed 6 barrels of carbureted chaos, ready to smash quarter-mile records and ruffle feathers. Top 7. 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner 446 barrel. Picture this: a cartoon bird badge, a beep-beep horn, and a quarter-mile beast that could dust your ego in 13 seconds flat. In 1970, Plymouth's Roadrunner was already famous for its budget-friendly brute force, but for the true drag strip faithful, there was one spec that turned this friendly bird into a feathered missile: the 446 barrel. Instead of the pricey Hemi option, you got the 440 cubic inch big block, topped with not 1, not 2, but 3 holy 2-barrel carbs. Punch the throttle, and all 6 barrels gulped air like a vacuum from hell. Outside, the Roadrunner looked like the everyman's muscle car: cartoon badge, air grabber hood scoop, and bench seats. But under that hood, 390 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque in a package that weighed less than some full-size family sedans. Here's what made it so insane. The 6-barrel setup cost less than the Hemi, but could run neck and neck with it on the strip. CarLife testers clocked the 446 barrel at 13.3 seconds at 106 miles per hour, making it one of the quickest factory Mopars you could buy for under $4,000, all while blasting its signature BBB horn like a joke on your beaten opponent. Sadly, insurance premiums and emissions regs soon choked out the multi-garb monster. Many 6-barrel cars got decommissioned or had their carbs swapped for single 4 barrels. Today, a legit 446 barrel is a time machine to an era when adding more carbs was the answer to everything. But if you think 3 carbs was overkill, Dodge had an answer that cranked things up with pure Hemi attitude. Next up, the Challenger R/T426 Hemi, an icon that turned the strip into its personal playground. Top 8. 1970 Dodge Challenger R/T426 Hemi. Big, bold, unapologetic, this is the Challenger that didn't just race the quarter mile, it tried to own it. In 1970, Dodge threw its hat into the pony car ring with the Challenger, a machine that borrowed muscle from its Mopar brothers, but wrapped it in sleek, fresh sheet metal. The R/T trim was the top dog, and under its long, sculpted hood, the mythical 426 cubic pound cubic Hemi, nicknamed the Elephant for good reason. 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque that hit like a sledgehammer. Outside, the Challenger R/T oozed street menace. Wide stance, bumblebee stripes, hood pins, and that iconic shaker scoop poking through the hood, trembling at idle like it was itching to eat Camaros for breakfast. Inside, high-back bucket seats, a slapstick shifter, and rally gauges made it feel more fighter jet than family coupe. But here's the kicker. Despite its big thrunk weight, the Hemi Challenger could launch down the quarter mile in 13.4 seconds at over 105 miles per hour. Numbers that left many lighter cars stunned. This was brute speed wrapped in luxury trim, a muscle car that could rumble through town and then terrorize the drag strip on Friday night. Today, finding an original Hemi Challenger R/T is like digging for gold. Out of nearly 77,000 Challengers built in 1970, fewer than 350 left the factory with the Hemi. Survivors command six-figure prices and a level of reverence few cars ever earn. Yet for all its Hemi glory, there was another Dodge lurking in the shadows. Longer, sharper, and built to cheat the wind, a NASCAR outlaw unleashed on the street. Top 9. 1970 Dodge Charger Daytona 440 Magnum. Some muscle cars looked fast. The Daytona didn't just look fast, it was born to break speed limits that even NASCAR couldn't contain. In the late 60s, Dodge engineers faced a challenge: win at NASCAR or go home. So they turned the Charger into a full-blown aero weapon. The Daytona got that towering rear wing, an aerodynamic nose cone, flush rear window, all designed to cut drag and keep the car glued to the asphalt at insane speeds. Underneath, they dropped in the 440 Magnum V8, good for 375 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. While the 426 Hemi Daytona got all the headlines, the 440 Magnum version made up the majority of street cars built. Still potent, but just slightly more civilized. And civilized meant a quarter-mile time of 13.9 seconds at over 102 miles per hour, thanks to factory gearing and that slippery shape cheating the wind. Here's the twist. The Daytona wasn't just fast in a straight line. Its aerodynamic tweaks let it hit 200-plus miles per hour on NASCAR's superspeedways, making it the first American car to do so. That's why NASCAR banned it after 1970. It was just too good. Because of that ban, only about 503 Daytonas were ever built. Today, a 440 Magnum Daytona, even without the Hemi, is an icon. Its combination of outrageous styling, big painter power, and outlaw status makes it a grail car for Mopar fanatics. But as wild as a winged Charger might be, one underdog from AMC decided it would take on the big three, 1/4 mile at a time. Meet the Rebel Machine, the muscle car nobody expected to be this fast. Top 10, 1970 AMC Rebel Machine. Think AMC was just quirky economy cars? Think again. This Rebel didn't just break the rules, it crushed the quarter mile, leaving bigger names in the dust. In 1970, American Motors knew they needed more than cheap compacts to grab headlines. So they unleashed the Rebel Machine, a mid-size muscle monster in red, white, and blue war paint. Beneath that wild exterior sat a beefed-up 390 cubic inch V8, factory ranged at 340 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. But insiders knew those numbers were conservative. Real output was closer to 360, plus horses. The machine was more than just a pretty paint job. It came with a Ram A hood scoop, heavy dot suspension, beefy sway bars, and a close ratio 4-speed or a quick-shifting automatic. Thanks to sticky tires and the right rear-end gears, the machine could rip the quarter mile in 14.2 seconds at 98 miles per hour, outrunning plenty of GTOs and 442S that underestimated this patriotic bruiser. The biggest twist? AMC offered the machine for a single year. It was meant to shock the market, prove a point, and then vanish. No follow-up, no second act, just one glorious fire-breathing run. Only about 2,326 Rebel machines ever left the factory. Many got raced, beat to death, or faded into obscurity. Today, a surviving Rebel machine is one of the rarest, most unexpected quarter-mile heroes from the muscle car golden age. A rolling middle finger to anyone who doubted AMC's guts. And now you know, even the underdogs could dominate the strip. But which of these legends would you line up in your dream drag race? The next rundown memory lane might just rewrite your idea of American speed forever. And there you have it, the top 10 fastest classic muscle cars that ruled the quarter mile in the roaring 70s. From the Chevelle SS 454 LS6 down to the Rebel machine, each one proved that speed never goes out of style. Which of these beasts would you race if you had just one shot at the drag strip? Drop your pick in the comments. We love hearing which legends get your heart racing. Thanks for watching Top 5 Classic Cars. Smash that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more iconic stories, one quarter mile at a time.